It was a bright Friday morning. The school was decorated with flags, pictures of Army heroes, and posters that said "Honor our soldiers." It was Army Day, and everyone was excited. Students wore white clothes, teachers had badges on, and a special guest, a local police officer, had been invited to speak. Among the students was a small, quiet boy named Arham. He stood near the back, holding something tightly in his pocket. It was a small, old metal, shiny but scratched. It had belonged to his father. Arham's father had left over a year ago on a mission. He was in the military. That's what Arham's mother had always said. He had no pictures in uniform, no videos, no certificates, just a medal, and a few short letters his dad had sent before going silent. Most people in town thought Arham's father had left the family. Some said he was dead, others said he was never in the army at all. But Arham believed his father was a hero. The students gathered near the stage as the police officer began to speak. Today, we celebrate those who protect our country. The brave soldiers, the smart leaders, the strong officers. He looked around proudly. Do any of you have a family member in the army? A few hands went up. Then slowly Arham raised his hand too. The officer noticed him and pointed. You, what's your name, son? Arham, the boy said softly. And, who is in the army? The officer asked. My dad, Arham replied. The officer smiled, but in a strange way. Oh really? And what does he do? Arham looked down. He went on a secret mission last year, and hasn't come back. The officer raised an eyebrow. Secret mission? Huh, that's a big story. You have any proof, son? Photos, letters, uniform. The students laughed. A few whispered to each other. Arham felt his cheeks go red. I have his medal, he said quietly. The officer chuckled. A medal? That's it. Kids these days love to make things up. Maybe your dad just went to the store and forgot to come back. Everyone laughed louder now. Even some teachers smiled awkwardly. Arham stood still, holding the medal tighter in his pocket. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let them fall. He whispered, He's a real soldier. The officer turned away and walked to the front. All right, let's get back to the real heroes, the ones we know about. But just then, something changed. A long dark shadow appeared behind the officer. It moved silently across the ground, stretching taller and taller. The officer paused mid-sentence, sensing something behind him. The laughter stopped. The students went quiet, some pointed. The officer turned slowly. Standing behind him was a man, tall, strong, wearing military boots. His face was hidden under a cap. His posture was sharp, like a real soldier. No one had seen him arrive. He hadn't come in a car. He hadn't walked through the front gate. It was like he appeared from the air. The man's voice was deep but calm. Why are you mocking this boy? He asked the officer. The officer blinked. Excuse me? You laughed at him, the man said. You questioned his father. Why? The officer tried to smile. Just a joke. Sir, kids say all kinds of things. The man stepped closer. His boots hit the floor with a heavy sound. His father was a soldier, a good one. Arham's eyes grew wide. He stepped forward. Do you know him? The man looked at Arham but didn't answer. He turned back to the officer. Never question a soldier's child unless you know the truth. The officer looked nervous now. I didn't mean to. The man removed his cap slightly, revealing a sharp scar near his temple and a military tag around his neck. It shined in the sun. Gasps filled the room. The man pointed to the badge on the officer's chest. That badge gives you power. Use it with respect. Then he turned and walked away. Wait, Arham called out. He ran after him, but the man had already moved past the crowd. By the time Arham reached the hallway, he was gone. No footsteps, no doors opening, nothing. He was just gone. The students stared at Arham now, not laughing anymore. The officer looked embarrassed. He fixed his collar and stepped away from the stage without finishing his speech. A teacher came over and placed a hand on Arham's shoulder. That was strange. Arham took out the medal from his pocket and looked at it. It felt warmer now, heavier. Something had changed. The man had known his father. He was sure of it. Back home, Arham told his mother everything. She listened, carefully, her hands trembling. She opened a small drawer and pulled out a torn letter, one of the last ones from Arham's dad. She pointed to a line near the end. If someone ever finds you and speaks of the badge and the shadow, follow them. It means your time has come. Arham looked at her. He said that. She nodded. I never understood it until now. That night, Arham sat near the window, holding the medal. His heart was beating fast. Someone out there knew the truth. Someone who had waited for this moment. And they had come. But why now? He didn't know it yet. But that shadow would return, and the truth about his father's mission would change everything. Arham couldn't sleep that night. He sat near the window, holding the medal tightly in his hands. The words from his father's letter kept repeating in his mind. If someone ever finds you and speaks of the badge and the shadow, follow them. It means your time has come. What time? What did it mean? And who was that man in the military boots? His face was hidden, but there was something familiar about him. The way he stood, the way he spoke, the way he defended Arham in front of everyone. That wasn't a normal officer. That was someone who knew something. In the morning, Arham asked his mother if she had ever seen that man before. She looked unsure. No, she said. But the way you describe him, he could be from your father's team. Before your dad? left. He spoke of one friend, someone who promised to look after us if things went wrong. Do you remember his name? Arham asked. No, she said softly. Your father kept his name a secret, he said. If he ever comes, you'll know. At school, everyone looked at Arham differently. Some kids were curious. Some stayed away. Even the teachers treated him with more respect. The police officer never returned. No one knew who the mystery man was. Rumors started. Some said he was a ghost soldier. Others said he came from a secret base. But Arham knew it was real. That man wasn't a story. He had come for a reason. That afternoon, Arham stayed behind after class. He sat, alone near the tree in the backfield, the same place where he used to draw army tanks in his notebook. He looked up at the sky and whispered, Dad, if you're out there, send me something. I'm ready. Just then, a small paper airplane landed near his foot. He looked around. No one was there. He picked it up and unfolded it. There were only 2 words inside. Follow bench. Arham turned slowly. In the far corner of the field, there was an old bench under the shade of a tree. He stood up and walked toward it. As he reached the bench, he saw something strange. A folded piece of dark cloth lay on the seat. On top of it, a metal badge. Arham picked it up and turned it over. The same military symbol as the medal in his pocket. But this badge had a number scratched on the back. 47 Alpha. Below it, a small note. Tonight, midnight, Hillpoint Base. Come alone. Arham's heart started racing. Hillpoint Base was far outside the city. It was supposed to be abandoned, closed years ago. No one went there anymore. He stuffed the badge and note in his bag and walked home quickly. He didn't say anything to his mother yet. He wasn't sure she would let him go, but he felt it deep in his heart this was connected to his father. And the man with the scar? That night Arham stayed awake, pretending to sleep. At 11:45 p.m., he quietly got out of bed, picked up his bag, and slipped out the door. The streets were dark and silent. He rode his old bicycle down the narrow lanes, heading toward the hills. Hillpoint Base sat beyond the trees, past the old bridge. As he approached, he saw nothing, no lights, no movement, just an old gate with rusted bars. But the moment he stepped near, the gate creaked open by itself. A soft light blinked near a broken wall. Arham pushed the gate and entered. The base looked forgotten, cracked walls, shattered windows, and dust everywhere. But the light was real. He followed it, step by step, deeper into the compound. Finally, he reached a large metal door. The number 47 was painted in red. He looked at the badge in his hands, same number. He took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened slowly. Inside stood the man from the school. No cap this time. His face was clear, strong jaw, scar on the right cheek, calm eyes. He smiled slightly. You came. Arham stepped in. Who are you? The man nodded. I'm Captain Zamir, your father's closest friend. Arham's eyes widened. You knew him? Yes, Zamir said. We trained together, fought side by side, and he trusted me with something important. Arham's voice trembled. Is he dead? Zamir looked away. We don't know. He went missing during a mission Operation Ironcloud. Everyone thinks he's gone, but I don't believe it. Arham stepped closer. What was the mission? Zamir led him to a table with maps and files. Your father found something. Someone inside the army was leaking secrets to enemies. He was close to exposing them, but before he could return, he vanished. Arham looked down at the badge. This was his. Zamir nodded. That badge belonged to your father. He sent it with a message one I received only days ago. It said, when the boy finds the shadow, the door opens. That's why I came to the school. Arham's hands shook. So you think he's still alive? I believe he left clues, Zamir said. Hidden messages only his son would understand. Arham took out the old letter. The line about the badge and the shadow was clearer now. The room inside the old Hillpoint Base was filled with silence. Arham stood beside Captain Zamir, staring at the large maps on the wall. Some were marked with red pins, others with dates and words he couldn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. His father had left behind something important, something dangerous. Captain Zamir pointed at a small black folder on the table. Your father left this with me months before he disappeared. He told me to give it to you only when the right time came. Arham's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were photos of men in uniform, strange symbols, and a map of a city block crossed with a red X. There was also a small plastic card with a silver chip and a note that read, if I don't return, he will. Arham looked at Zamir. What is this card? It's a military access key, Zamir explained. Only high-ranking officers had it. With this, your father could enter any secret base. He wanted you to have it in case something happened to him. But I'm just a kid, Arham said. Zamir gave a small smile. You're more than that. You're his son, and he believed in you. Arham looked back at the map. What's this red X? Zamir's face turned serious. That's the place your father went to on the day he vanished. It's an old training facility now, close to the public. But some people believe it was being used secretly. By who? Arham asked. Zamir hesitated, then whispered, by someone inside the military, someone with power, someone your father was trying to expose. Arham swallowed hard. You think he was captured? Zamir nodded. or worse. But there's only one way to find out. That night, they stayed in the base. Zamir showed Arham how to read military signals, how to use the access card, and how to stay hidden. Arham tried to absorb every detail. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but something inside him had changed. He no longer felt like a lost boy. He felt like a son on a mission. The next day, they left early and headed toward the old facility marked on the map. It was hidden deep inside a forest, surrounded by fences and signs that said no entry. They parked far from the main gate and moved quietly through the trees. Arham's heart pounded with every step. As they reached the edge of the fence, Zamir pointed to a small camera near the top. "We'll need to disable that before we move in." Arham looked up, then reached into his bag. He pulled out a small mirror one his dad used to carry when shaving during camp days. Arham tilted the mirror toward the sun, blinding the camera. For a few seconds, Zamir smiled with pride. Smart thinking. They slipped through a hole in the fence and ran quietly toward the back of the building. The walls were cracked, and the windows covered in dust. But the front door had fresh footprints. Someone had been there recently. Zameer held up a hand, signaling Arham to stay behind. He crept forward and peeked through the window. Inside, a man sat at a desk, typing something into a laptop. Zamir's eyes narrowed. "That's him," he whispered. "Colonel Iqbal. He was your father's superior." "And the last person to see him alive?" Arham's breath caught in his throat. "What is he doing here?" Zamir didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a small recording device. "We get proof," he said, "and then we go." They moved around to a side door. Zamir used the access card. Arham's father left. It worked. The door clicked open. They crept inside, keeping low, making no sound. Arham could hear the soft tapping of the laptop keys. They reached a dark hallway that led straight to the main room. Zamir placed the recorder under a chair near the door. He whispered, "Stay here. I'll ask him questions. If something goes wrong, run." Arham wanted to stop him, but he nodded. He watched as Zamir stepped into the room. "Colonel Iq," Zamir said firmly. The man at the desk turned quickly. His eyes widened. "Zamir, what are you doing here?" Zamir took a step forward, looking for answers about Commander Haris. The colonel stood slowly. "That's a name I haven't heard in a long time." "You were the last to see him," Zamir said. "Tell me the truth." Colonel Iqbal looked around nervously. "You shouldn't be here. You don't know who's watching." "I don't care," Zamir replied. "Tell me what you did." Arham leaned closer, trying to hear every word. He wished he could step in, but he stayed hidden. The colonel sighed. "Your friend found out too much. He discovered our plan to sell secret information to a foreign agent. He was going to report it. I had to stop him." Arham gasped quietly. Zamir's voice turned cold. "So you made him disappear?" "I didn't kill him," the colonel said quickly. "He escaped, but I don't know where he went." "You're lying, I swear," the colonel shouted. "He sent a message after that. I couldn't stop it. He said his son would find the rest." Zamir stepped back slowly. "That's all I needed." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed. The colonel pulled out a gun and fired. Zamir ducked behind a chair. The bullet hit the wall. Arham jumped in fear but didn't run. Zamir shouted, "Go, Arham, get out of here." But Arham didn't move. He pulled out the metal from his pocket, held it tight, and whispered, "Dad, give me strength." He saw a fire extinguisher nearby. He picked it up, ran forward, and threw it at the colonel's hand. The gun fell. Zamir tackled him and tied his hands with a cord. They both breathed hard. Then Zamir looked at Arham and said, "You saved my life?" Arham didn't speak. He stared at the colonel, who now looked at him with fear. The boy who had been mocked, who had been laughed at, had just stopped a criminal, and somewhere in the shadows of the past, a father's plan had just taken another step forward. Colonel Iqbal sat on the floor, his hands tied tightly behind his back. His eyes darted around the room, looking for a way to escape. Arham stood across from him, holding the medal that once belonged to his father. The silence in the room felt heavy. Captain Zamir walked over slowly, picking up the gun that had fallen. "You tried to kill me," he said quietly, "just like you tried to silence Haris." The colonel smirked. "I should have finished it years ago." Zamir bent down and stared into his eyes. "Where is Commander Haris? Tell us now." The colonel stayed silent. Zamir pressed harder. "He escaped, you said. Where did he go?" The colonel chuckled. "You'll never find him. He planned too well. Not even I could track him. He left a false trail." Arham stepped closer. "Then why did you keep coming here?" The colonel paused. His face changed. "Slightly. Because I knew one day his son would show up. He warned me about that. Said his son would finish what he started. I didn't believe him. Not until now." Zamir turned to Arham. "We need to leave. There could be more men watching this place." Arham nodded. They grabbed the recorder from under the chair. I had captured every word the colonel said. Zamir made a call to a trusted contact in military intelligence, someone he had worked with in the past. He gave the location and said, "I have proof, and I need secure transport." Within an hour, a black SUV arrived with 2 trusted officers. Colonel Iqbal was taken away under heavy watch. As they drove away from the old facility, Arham looked out the window. His hands were still shaking. "That man, he knew my father was alive. He just didn't know where. Zamir nodded. Your father always stayed one step ahead. If he didn't want to be found, he wouldn't be. Arham turned to him, but he left clues. He wanted me to follow them. Zamir gave a small smile. He trusted you with something no one else could handle. Back at Hill Point Base, Zamir placed the military access card into an old laptop. It blinked twice, then opened a hidden folder. Inside were encrypted files, messages, and a short video. Arham leaned forward. Is that him? Zamir clicked the file. The screen flickered. Then Arham saw his father. He was sitting in a dark room, wearing a military vest. His beard was longer, his face thinner, but his eyes were strong. The video began to play. If you're seeing this, Commander Harris said, then I've failed to return. That means someone I trusted is guiding my son now. Arham's heart raced. You were always curious, always brave. I didn't want this for you, but now I have no choice. There's a man inside the military, bigger than Iqbal. He runs a secret group. They sell our country's secrets. I found out too late. The video paused for a moment. Harris looked down, then back at the camera. I had to disappear. To protect you, your mother, and the truth. But if my plan worked, you have the card, the medal, and the letter. All three lead to the final location. He held up a small map. It's buried in the place where we planted that tree together when you were 5. You said you'd name it Brave Leaf. That's where I left everything. The screen went black. Arham was silent. He remembered the tree clearly. It stood at the edge of the city park, near a quiet stream. His father had helped him plant it during a family picnic. He had even taken a photo of them standing beside it. Zamir turned to him. Looks like we're going to Braveleaf. They waited until early morning to avoid attention. By the time the sun rose, they were already near the park. The city was waking up, but the far end of the park was still empty. Arham led the way. The tree had grown taller, its trunk thicker, but it still had the small wooden tag that read Braveleaf. Zamir pulled out a small shovel and began to dig near the base. Arham helped, clearing away the soil carefully. After a few minutes, the shovel hit something hard. Zamir stopped. There's something here. Together, they pulled out a small, metal box. It was locked but had a slot that matched the shape of the access card. Arham handed it over. Zamir inserted the card. The box clicked open. Inside was a thin notebook, a second USB device, and another letter. The night was still and quiet, but inside Hill Point Base, every room was full of energy. Officers moved between computers, printing out files, checking maps, and making secret phone calls. Major Tamer had taken full control of the investigation. He trusted Zamir completely, and now, he had begun to trust Arham too. The boy who had once been mocked was now sitting in a command room surrounded by people in uniform. Zamir stood next to Arham, pointing at a large screen. This file contains the full list of code names used by the secret group your father was chasing. We found one name circled twice, Shadowhawk. That may be their leader. Arham leaned forward. Do we know who he is? Zamir shook his head. Not yet. But the good news is, he knows we're getting close. Major Tamor entered the room. He looked serious. We got a message. Someone tried to break into a military archive late last night, the same place where your father's last mission report was stored. Zamir frowned. They're trying to erase his name. The major nodded. But we stopped them. One man escaped, the other was caught, and Arham. He said something strange before we arrested him. He said, the boy won't make it to the end. The shadow always wins. Arham didn't react at first, but those words sat deep in his chest. Let him think that, he said softly. We're not stopping. Tamor placed a new file on the table. There's one last location mentioned in your father's notebook. It's marked with a symbol. We just found out it's an old communication tower, hidden inside the northern mountains. It was shut down years ago, but signals were recently sent from it. We believe your father could have used it to send his final message. Zamir looked at Arham. Then that's where we go next. They prepared to leave the next morning. The journey to the mountains was long and rough. Snow covered the narrow roads, and the wind howled like a warning. Arham wore his father's scarf around his neck. Zamir carried the files and USB, sent a small team of trusted soldiers with them, but they kept their movements silent and off the radar. After 5 hours, they reached the edge of the forest. The old tower stood tall in the distance, broken but still holding its shape. That's it, Zamir said. Let's move. As they stepped inside, the air was cold and dry. The place smelled like rust and dust, but there were footprints. On the floor, fresh ones. Someone's been here recently, Arham said. Zamir raised a hand. Stay alert. They moved through the empty hall, checking each room. Suddenly, one of the soldiers found a small door in the back. It led to a basement. Arham's heart beat faster as they climbed down. At the bottom, they found something that made them all freeze. A small room, a chair, a table, a water bottle, and a map on the wall, marked with all the places they had visited. Someone had been living here, watching. Following on the table was a recorder. Zamir pressed play. A deep, tired voice spoke. If you found this place, it means I'm still running. I couldn't come home. They would have used my family to control me, but I know my son will find me, and when he does, I'll come out of the dark. Arham's eyes filled with tears. It's him. He was here. Zamir looked around, and not long ago, suddenly, one of the soldiers called from upstairs, "Sir, we've found something." They rushed up and saw a drone hovering just outside the window. A message flashed across its screen: "Turn back or the boy disappears forever." Zamir pulled Arham behind him. "They're watching us." Tamor's voice came through the radio. "You need to leave now. We just intercepted a message. There's a group headed your way, armed, dangerous." Zamir made a quick decision. "We leave through the back. Take the files and the voice recorder. We'll regroup later." As they ran through the forest, gunshots rang out in the distance. They moved fast, ducking behind trees and rocks. Arham tried to stay close to Zamir, but the snow made it hard to run. Suddenly, a loud explosion hit a tree nearby. Arham fell, his arm scraping against a branch. Zamir picked him up. "You're okay. Don't stop." They reached a hidden path where a backup vehicle was waiting. As they jumped in, Arham looked back at the tower. Smoke rose in the air. "They paid. Wanted to trap us there," he said. "They're scared now." Zamir nodded. "Because they know we're close to the truth." Back at Hillpoint Base, Tamor played the voice recorder in front of a team of senior officers. All listened in silence. The army chief himself watched through a secure link. When the message ended, he spoke for the first time. "Commander Harris is alive, and this boy is carrying his legacy." Arham stood tall, his scraped arm wrapped in a bandage. "We need to find him before they do." Tamor agreed. "There's one last chance." Our tech team found a hidden signal inside the recorder's chip. It's a location code. It leads to a place called Black Hollow, a military safe house, deep in the southern valley. If your father left a clue there, it will be the last piece. Arham looked at Zamir. "Then let's go." "I'm ready." Zamir smiled. "I believe you are." As the team prepared to leave again, Arham sat alone for a moment. He pulled the medal from his pocket and whispered, "We're almost there, Baba. I can feel it." Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant footsteps, the enemy closing in. But inside Arham's heart, only one thing remained strong: hope. The road to Black Hollow was narrow and full of sharp turns. Trees surrounded them from every side, and clouds hung low over the valley. The safe house was deep in the mountains, far from any town or signal tower. Only a few people in the military even knew it existed. Zamir drove the lead vehicle. Arham sat beside him, staring out the window, the medal resting in his hand. Every second brought them closer to the truth. He didn't speak much. His heart was full of questions. Was his father really still alive? What would he say if they met? Would he even recognize his son after all this time? Behind them, a second vehicle carried Major Tamor and the backup team. They had orders to secure the area and find the final message that Commander Harris might have left. As the convoy reached the end of the road, they saw an old wooden gate. It was half broken, covered in vines. A faded sign read, "Restricted area. Keep out." Zamir stepped out of the car, holding a scanner. "This is it," he said. "The signal came from here." They entered slowly. The safe house was hidden between tall rocks, its roof nearly covered in moss. It looked empty, untouched for years. Arham walked carefully inside, every step echoing. In the silence, the walls were cold, and dust covered the floor. Zamir pointed to a steel locker in the corner. It had a number Ninzulu, the same number that appeared in one of his father's files. He opened the locker slowly. Inside was a metal box, a notebook, and a small digital device. Zamir handed the box to Arham. "It's yours." Arham opened. It inside was a second medal exactly like the one he carried on a folded photo. He opened the photo slowly. It showed a man in a soldier's uniform, standing beside a younger version of Zamir. Behind them, a boy with bright eyes held a toy plane. It was him. The boy was Arham, the man was his father. His hands shook. He stared at the photo for a long time. Zamir placed a hand on his shoulder. "He kept your picture with him all those years." Arham looked up. "Why didn't he come back?" Zamir sighed. "He wanted to, but he was protecting you. If he had come back, the enemies inside the system would have hurt you and your mother." Suddenly, Tamir entered the room. "We found something." They followed him to a small, hidden room behind the safe house. It was dark, with only a weak light bulb hanging from the ceiling. In the center of the room was a large board covered in notes, photos, and red threads connecting different names. On the side wall, a message was written in chalk: "Shadowhawk is closer than we think." Zamir scanned the board. Your father was tracking him, even from hiding. Tamor held up a sealed envelope. This was taped to the back of the board. "It has your name on it, Arham." Arham opened it slowly. Inside was a note in his father's handwriting. "Son, if you've reached here, then my mission is nearly complete, but I may not be there to finish it. The final proof is in Vault 17 inside Central Command. Only the boy with the badge can open it." Zamir stepped back. "Central Command? That's impossible. Only the highest officers are allowed in." Tamor, Looked, shocked. "Vault 17 is under high security. If your father left something there, he must have had help from someone very powerful." Arham held the badge tightly. He said only I could open it. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed outside. A helicopter, then two more. Zamir ran to the window. "We've been found." Soldiers, in black uniforms, dropped down ropes and began surrounding the safe house. Tamor shouted, "Those aren't our men." They were part of the secret group, armed and ready to destroy everything. Zamir pulled Arham down. "We're not fighting. Then we're escaping." Tamor handed Arham the digital device from the locker. "Protect this. It may be the key to Vault 17. Gunfire broke out outside. The team moved through the back exit, covering each other. Arham ran behind Zamir, the snow crunching under his feet. Bullets flew past them. One hit the ground near Arham's foot, but he kept running. They reached the vehicles, but one was already destroyed. "We take the forest route," Zamir shouted. They disappeared into the trees, moving fast and low. Behind them, the safe house exploded fire, lighting up the night sky. They ran 4 miles before stopping near a hidden cave. It was cold and quiet. The team checked for wounds. One soldier had a deep cut, but everyone was alive. Abraham sat near a rock, breathing hard. He looked at the digital device. The next morning, the forest was covered in fog. The team had camped inside a small cave, using branches and rocks to block the cold wind. Arham woke up early, holding the digital device in his hand. The screen still blinked softly. Activism was the only lead left. Vault 17 was now their target. The final truth was there, hidden, protected, and dangerous to uncover. Zamir sat across from him, cleaning his weapon and checking a paper map. "General Faraz is posted 2 cities away," he said. "He's old now, retired, but still has access to the central system. If anyone can get us inside, it's him." Tamor joined them. "We'll have to move fast. After the attack at Black Hollow, the group will try to reach the vault before us. If they destroy what's inside, we lose everything." They packed up quietly. Arham placed the metal and digital device deep in his backpack and zipped it tightly. He didn't speak much. His thoughts were heavy. His father had left a path, one that led into the heart of danger, and now they were at the edge of the final step. They drove through back roads and empty highways, avoiding cities and checkpoints. Every movement was quiet, every stop was fast. By afternoon, they reached a quiet town near the border where General Faraz lived. His house was hidden behind large trees, with a flagpole standing tall in front. Zamir walked to the door and knocked gently. Moments later, a tall man with white hair and sharp eyes opened the door. He stared at Zamir, then at Arham. "You look just like him," he said quietly. "Come in." Inside, the walls were filled with old army photos, medals, and books. The air smelled like leather and history. Arham looked around, spotting a framed picture of his father and General Faraz standing together, smiling. Zamir explained everything: the recordings, the files, the safe house, and Vault 17. Faraz listened carefully. When they finished, he stood up, walked to a locked drawer, and took out a keycard. "This gives me one final access to Central Command," he said. "I never used it, but for Harry's son, I will." Arham stepped forward. "Thank you, sir." Faraz looked him in the eyes. "Your father saved my life once. Now it's my turn." That evening, they headed toward Central Command, a massive base surrounded by tall gates, cameras, and checkpoints. Zamir, Faraz, Tamor, and Arham entered through the officer lane. The guards saw the general's card and saluted without question. Inside, the base was alive with movement. Soldiers marched, vehicles rolled in and out, and helicopters landed on distant pads. Faraz led them through a long hallway, into an elevator that went deep underground. As they descended, Arham felt his heart beat faster. Vault 17 was just minutes away when the doors opened. They were met by 2 guards. "Identification," one of them said. Faraz showed his ID and placed his hand on a scanner. The door buzzed, then slowly opened with a loud click. Inside was a wide room lined with storage lockers, servers, and thick doors. At the far end, a glowing number appeared. 17. They walked to it. The door had no handle, just a small slot for a card and a square-shaped panel for a digital device. Arham pulled both from his bag, the badge and the device. Zamir placed the badge into the slot. A red light turned green, then Arham gently placed the device onto the panel. It beeped 3 times, then the door opened. Inside was a small room, empty except for one metal table. On the table was a black case. Zamir opened it slowly. Inside were files, a USB drive, and one last letter. Arham picked it up. It was addressed to my son, the final piece. He opened it with shaking hands. "Arham, if you're reading this, you've done what many grown men could not. You were brave. I knew you would find the truth. Inside this vault are the final files, names, places, dates, everything. Once this goes public, the group will fall. But be careful. Their leader is still out there. His real name is hidden in the USB file. He'll do anything to stop you. Be strong, my son. I love you, Baba." Arham wiped his eyes, holding the paper tightly. Zamir connected the USB to a secure terminal. The screen lit up with folders titled Shadow Files, Internal Leaks, and Primary Enemy. Tamor pointed. "There it is. That folder." They opened it. A single name appeared on the screen. Everyone froze. It was someone they knew, someone close. Major Tamor's face went pale. Zamir whispered, "No, it can't be." The name read, General Adil Khan, a man in uniform, a respected hero, a leader of many missions. He had given medals to brave soldiers. He had stood at national parades. But he was the real Shadowhawk. Zamir stepped back. He was the one all this time. Faraz's face turned dark. He trained with us, ate with us, and he betrayed us. Arham felt sick. He's still inside the base, isn't he? Tamor nodded slowly. He's the deputy chief now. He can shut this entire vault if he finds out we're here. Zamir moved quickly. We need to get this data out. Right now, before he sees it. Suddenly the lights flickered. Then the sirens began. A robotic voice echoed. Unauthorized access detected. Lockdown initiated. The vault doors slammed shut. Arham looked around, heart pounding. He knows we're here. Zamir grabbed the USB. We take the side exit. There's an emergency tunnel behind the third wall. I used it once during a training drill. They ran to the wall and pulled a hidden latch. The wall cracked open, revealing a narrow passage. Faraz and Tamur covered the rear while Arham and Zamir led the way. The sirens grew louder. Footsteps echoed behind them. Amer turned to Arham. You hold that USB like your life depends on it because now it does. Arham didn't say a word. He ran faster, holding the USB and letter against his chest. They didn't stop because now they knew the truth, and the truth was dangerous. The emergency tunnel was dark and narrow. The sound of alarms echoed behind them, bouncing off the walls. Red lights blinked from hidden sensors. Arham held the USB tight in his hand. Every step he took reminded him that this was more than just a mission. This was his father's legacy. Zamir ran ahead, guiding them through sharp turns. General Faraz and Major Tamur followed, their weapons ready, watching the rear for danger. Somewhere inside the base, General Adil Khan, the traitor known as Shadowhawk, was already hunting them. We don't have much time, Zamir said. He'll send guards to block the exit. Faraz nodded. We head to the top-level communications room. If we can broadcast the files from there, the truth will go public. Arham looked at Zamir. What if we don't make it? Zamir paused, and placed a hand on his shoulder. Then we make sure the truth survives even if we don't. They climbed up a metal ladder and reached a side door. Zamir peeked through a small crack. The hallway was clear. They moved fast, sticking close to the walls, staying out of camera range. Arham's heart was beating so loud, he thought everyone could hear it. Every corner felt like a trap. Every noise made him flinch. Suddenly voices echoed from around the bend. Zamir signaled them to stop. 2 soldiers stood guard near the next stairwell. Tamur whispered, We'll distract them. You two get to the broadcast room. No, Arham said firmly. We do this together. Faraz smiled. Spoken like your father. Tamur and Faraz moved first, walking out with their weapons down. Officers on inspection, Tamur shouted. The guards looked confused. We weren't told. That was enough. Zamir grabbed Arham's arm and ran past while the others distracted the soldiers. They reached the main floor and slipped into a door marked Broadcast and Surveillance. Inside, the room was full of monitors and equipment. A large control panel sat in the middle. Zamir locked the door behind them. This is it. We upload everything. Here Arham plugged the USB into the main terminal. The files began transferring to every screen in the room. Faces, names, voice recordings, money transfers, orders signed by General Adil. The entire network was now exposed. Zamee. I'll open the public channel. This is Captain Zamir Khan. He spoke clearly. We are inside Central Command. What you're seeing is not fake. These are the hidden crimes of General Adil Khan, also known as Shadowhawk. Outside the base, on TV screens across the country, in homes, offices, and phones, the broadcast began. Arham stood next to the screen, staring into the camera. My name is Arham Harris, he said. They laughed at me. They said my father was a liar. They called me a boy with stories. But my father was a hero. And today, his truth is your truth. Then, everything went dark. The screens turned off. Power cut. The door burst open. General Adil stood there, surrounded by armed guards. His eyes were filled with rage. Enough of this, he shouted. You little fool, you think you can destroy me? Zamir stepped in front of Arham. It's already done. The broadcast went live. Adil raised his gun. You think I care? I still control this place. Suddenly, another voice echoed behind him. Not anymore. Everyone turned. General Faraz and Major Tamur entered from the side door with a squad of loyal soldiers. Tamur raised his hand. Drop your weapons. Adil hesitated. You wouldn't dare? Faraz stepped forward. You betrayed the uniform, the country, and your own people. Your time is over. Adil fired but missed. One of the loyal soldiers shot back. Adil fell to the ground, wounded but alive. Take him, Tamur ordered. The court will decide his fate. 2 soldiers dragged Adil away. Arham stood still, breathing hard. Zamir walked to him. You did it. Your father would be proud. Faraz nodded. You finished the mission he started. The next day, the news spread across the world. Corrupt general exposed by missing soldier's son.